A couple weeks ago, I put out a video talking about the deaths of Pedro Pascal in TV and movies, and people seemed to like it. And so I got to thinking, who is somebody else that is like just as popular, just as liked? And I actually came up with somebody who's probably even more popular and even more liked and has died even more times in movies, and that is Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves has had a career spanning all the way back into like the mid 80s at this point. The guy's been around for a while. A lot of different types of roles that we're going to get to talk about today. Can put out a big spoiler warning for any movie that Keanu Reeves has been in. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but if I even mention what movies I'm spoiling that he's going to die in them. So that's kind of the weird conundrum. If you are interested in giving me ideas for future people to talk about in this series, I'd love to hear them. Yes, I know you want Sean Bean, and it's coming. But you got to work your way up to the big boys, all right? All right, so let's get started when it comes to Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves' first death is going to come in the sequel to one of his first big breakout roles, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. This one is called Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. It came out in 1991. In this movie, robot versions of Bill and Ted come from the future and kill the real Bill and Ted so that they can take over their lives and ruin, the future. If you haven't seen these movies, they're very fun. There's parts of it that haven't aged well, but just remember that Bill and Ted, they got a good heart, right? So when it comes to them getting killed, they get thrown off of a cliff, which is, always fun. You don't see it happen because it's a comedy. It's played as a joke. The robots spit loogies on them after they die too. And then eventually they do come back to life. And that's something we're going to see actually in a lot of Keanu Reeves' death scenes. He resurrects almost half of the times that he dies in movies. So I do like this one. It leads to really the whole plot going and all the craziness that happens in this movie. And so I'm going to give this one a B. 2 years later, Keanu Reeves was featured in a movie called Little Buddha. Now, is Keanu Reeves doing some type of racial stereotyping in this role? I'm not going to be the one to decide that. I am going to decide that this death is going to be an F tier because it happens off screen. He only shows up in flashbacks, and then there's a big stretch of time that happens, and he's dead. It's the worst kind of death off screen. Shouldn't probably even talk about it here, but we're going to mention it. F tier. It's going to be 4 more years until Keanu Reeves dies again in 1997. The Devil's Advocate is a movie about Keanu Reeves being a lawyer, a very good lawyer who doesn't care if the people that he is representing are, guilty or not. He's fully on board to lie, do anything just to win. And then eventually he ends up working for the devil, though he does not know it as he gets going in there. It's kind of like, a third act twist. In the big, climactic ending, the devil, Al Pacino, is talking about oh man, I'm going to give you everything you want. You're not even going to care about your wife who's dead now, even though it's all your fault that she's dead and all this blah, blah, blah. And then Keanu Reeves is like, no, man, I got free will and I don't have to do this. And then he kind of, does himself in. And in doing that, he does die, but then he flashed back to when he met the devil at the end, or back before he met the devil. It's very satisfying whenever anybody gets one over on the devil in a movie. I always like that stuff. There's, a little bit at the end where it's oh, and the devil's still got his hooks in him just a tiny bit, even though he chooses not to represent bad people anymore. But I am going to give this one an A tier. It's very satisfying when it comes to the movie and everything. Just a good wrap up. And then in 1999, we get another huge pillar of Keanu Reeves' career, and that is The Matrix. And in The Matrix, Keanu Reeves dies, but it's okay. He's playing future robot Jesus, and so he's going to be back. In fact, he is back almost instantaneously, brought back to life by the love of Trinity. He gets shot in the chest a bunch by Agent Smith. It's kind of really surprising. You're oh shoot, he's dead, but then he comes back right away and is super awesome. And I love that scene when he comes back to life, and the way that Agent Smith is afraid when he gets kicked across the room is just always just one of those. It's so good. I just love those moments. Any moment where a bad guy is scared, I'm always on board. Though the death is short, it's very intense and in the moment, and you're just hoping oh, what's going to happen, because everybody else is going to die too as they're trying to get him pulled out of the Matrix. If you haven't seen the Matrix, I definitely recommend it. This is another A tier death. Just 1 year later, Keanu Reeves stars in a movie called The Watcher, and he's actually playing a serial killer in this movie, the type of role that nowadays would seem really out of place for him, at least to me. He's getting chased down by James Spader, who also, it seems really weird for him to be the good guy, at least, he's Ultron. He's the blacklist guy. He's not nice. But in this movie, it's him versus Keanu Reeves. And Keanu Reeves is going around strangling ladies, and James Spader is trying to stop him. And at the end of the movie, they're in this big old warehouse that's full of barrels that say flammable on them, which, if you're in a movie and a barrel says flammable and stuff doesn't catch on fire and blow up, you're doing something wrong. So he ends up getting shot with a shotgun and catching on fire, and it's awesome. Like, he's on fire doing like a full body burn, and then he like jumps out of a window, and then there's like bad CG fire that comes out after him, and then he lands in some water, and it's very good. It's one of those deaths in a movie where like if the bad guys get it and you're just like cheering the whole time. And so I'm actually going to give this one an S tier. 2003, we're going to get to the third Matrix movie. And guess what? Keanu Reeves is going to die again. And this one, it's really kind of the culmination of the entire, series. The machines are relying on Neo to, absorb all of this power. And it's all very kind of like, what's really happening? And I know there's lots of people who are very into the Matrix and very much know what's happening. But just as like an average viewer of movies, you're just kind of like, I know he's fighting Agent Smith, and I know that he says he's got to do this. And so then like energy's like blasting out of him, and he dies. And so then he's dead. And he doesn't come back this time. And it's kind of disappointing to me because it isn't like it's even something where it's like he's pulling the plug on stuff. He's like made this decision to sacrifice himself, and it just kind of is done through him to stop like Agent Smith. And so I don't know, for me it's not nearly as satisfying as the death from the first Matrix. It's going to be D tier. I'm ready to hear that this one's wrong. This one I definitely think people might actually like. We got a big tone shift when it comes to the types of movies Keanu Reeves was in. In 2006, we have The Lake House, starring him and Sandra Bullock teaming up again for the first time since Speed, which again, he's not on this list, but that movie is awesome. And if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. In The Lake House, Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, they are both living at this lake house, but at different times, right? There's like this 2-year gap between when they're talking to each other, and like they write letters and they put them in the mailbox, and they fall in love through these letters. And it turns out that he gets killed at the beginning of the movie, like when like a bus hits him, and Sandra Bullock doesn't know him at the time when she sees it happen. And so she's like saying to him, because he's in the past, she's like, don't try to find me. Like, I'll find you, or like we'll find each other when it's the right time. But if you try to find me, you're going to get killed. Because that's what killed him. He tries to find her. He steps in front of the bus and just gets killed. So really, moral of the story here is look both ways before you cross the street. It's an eternal lesson. Never forget it. This death, though, is going to be D tier. You don't see it happen. Like if there was even a shot where like he looks and he's all like, whoa, then I would have definitely pumped it up a couple levels. But with it just kind of happened, like she runs up and sees like a body who at the time we don't even know is Keanu Reeves. It's like, eh. In 2008, Keanu Reeves starred in a remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still. He plays an alien who comes to Earth. Now the alien, though, does not die. Who does die in this movie is a mountain climber who finds like an alien spaceship and gets some of his DNA stolen. He doesn't die from that happening. He dies again, similarly to a movie earlier, just of old age, off camera. It's the worst kind of death, so it's going to be an F tier. Boring. In 2013, Keanu Reeves starts to make his way back into action movies and everything. We haven't seen John Wick happen yet, but he's starting to make roads in that way. And so we have 47 Ronin. A lot of stuff that goes on in this movie, but eventually him and some of these other samurai are, eventually disgraced, but they're trying to avenge this guy who they're not supposed to avenge. Like the emperor or the shogun has told them, like, hey, don't do that. That's against the rules. But they go and do it anyway. And so in saving the people that they save, they kind of restore their honor, but they still have to get killed for disobey. And so they end up doing seppuku, which is like the samurai version of, offing yourself in an honorable way. And so they all have to do that, the ones that are still alive and everything. So it's very emotional. It's very sad. But, with compared to like the stuff that's been happening, like 5 minutes earlier, Keanu Reeves is fighting a dragon. And then like we're in this like solemn, quiet scene. And it just kind of feels a little out of place and weird to me. So I think I'm going to put it at C tier. Keanu Reeves is playing the bad guy again in 2013's Man of Tai Chi. He's the main bad guy here. He's fighting the main good guy. And the main good guy uses this like Tai Chi, like essentially like energy blast kind of thing up into his stomach. And then he dies. So, it's a decent fight scene and everything beforehand. Definitely not anything compared to like some of the craziness we've seen in the last few years from Keanu Reeves, but I'll give this one a B. In 2018, Keanu Reeves stars in a movie called Siberia. He's going and looking for these diamonds because he owes this guy these diamonds, but the only guy who knows where these diamonds are, they're like trying to find him, and they find out he's dead. And so then they find out, well, you're going to die, Keanu Reeves, because you can't get the guy the diamonds that he's supposed to have. And so the movie ends with like Keanu Reeves killing a bunch of these dudes, and then like the bad guy just walks up behind him and shotguns him, and Keanu Reeves just lays in the mud, and the bad guy walks away, and we just zoom in on his eyes, and that's the end of the movie. I don't know, with the whole movie maybe satisfying, but goodness, like it just doesn't seem very good to me. So I'm gonna give that one D tier. At least it happens on screen. In 2020, we get another sequel to the Bill and Ted movies called Bill and Ted Face the Music. And guess what? They die again in this one, and they come back to life again in this one as well. I'm not going to rate this one quite as high. It will be a C tier. A robot tries to blow himself up because he feels bad about some things he's been doing. This movie's pretty funny too. I recommend the Bill and Ted movies. And now maybe the most confusing death, at least to me, The Matrix Resurrections from 2021. There's a fight scene going on, and Keanu Reeves ends up with like a gun to his head, and he's like telling himself like, oh, it's not real and everything. And he gets shot because we hear the shot happen, but then it's just kind of like he's just still alive and everything. And so I don't know. Do you put it on the list? Do you not put it on the list? I don't know. I think I'm going to put this one in F tier. Again, if I'm just really not understanding the Matrix sequels, let me know. And then finally, we have, make sure you're ready for this, John Wick Chapter 4, the movie that just came out in theaters last weekend. He does die at the end of this movie, and I warned you up front, so don't come crying to me. It's very much how this movie needed to end, how the series really needed to end too. And if they bring John Wick back in something that's not a prequel, it's spitting in the face of the end of this movie. It's pretty much the perfect ending for his character. Him and Donnie Yen, they end up in like this duel together. And they do this trick to trick the bad guys so that Donnie Yen's daughter can be safe. They end up shooting Bill Skarsgård in the face, and everyone cheers because Bill Skarsgård is like the worst in this movie. So even though they have, won the day, Keanu Reeves still got shot like 3 times, and he doesn't have his special bulletproof jacket on that he's been wearing the rest of the movie because this guy's been shot like 1,000 times before this in the movie. Again, not a complaint. I really liked John Wick Chapter 4. But so he then like stumbles over to some steps, and he sits down, he's looking at the sunrise, and the last words he says are his wife's name. It's very good. It's very satisfying as an ending. I've kind of been waffling on whether or not to push it up into S tier, but it just kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't quite get up there for me. It's like A+. It's right there. There we go. That is my list of Keanu Reeves movie deaths. What did you think? Any of these? Did you not know he died in that movie? Did you not know he was in that movie? For me, The Watcher, I didn't know that Keanu Reeves was in that movie. I'd seen that poster 1,000 times, but I had no idea he was in it. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for watching the video. Why don't you think about subscribing if you want to see more content like this as it's coming out? Looking forward to doing more of these videos like in this series, as well as, a bunch of other kinds of videos where we do a lot of rankings and, just talking about different movies and video game stuff too. So thanks so much for stopping by. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, you take care